First, the Northern Virginia Constitution Commission. I'd like to go through, we're starting the meeting at 7:03. We're live streaming the meeting on the VCT's YouTube channel, and we welcome all of our citizens who view our meeting today or later. Our board administrators confirm we have an in-person forum. That's right, board administrators. Yes, we do. Well, welcome back from our summer break. We'll be discussing a lot of GMD moves as we go forward. We recognize the need our CEO, and a reminder that we have a closed session at the end. I have a quick statement to make. Earlier this summer, I received a diagnosis of cancer following 2 surgeries. The cancer was removed. I'm now in the process of contemplating actually completing the final days of radiation therapy, which is a precautionary measure. Continue to work and to represent the citizens of this region throughout this period, and look forward to a bright future for myself and for our region. I'm really doing that statement so you don't think I have a cocktail before this meeting. Yeah, there's a side benefit for everyone. I'll be spiking even less than usual. Okay. Hey, did we have any public comment?
No, we said there, we not have the public comment.
Okay, thanks a lot. We have last month's minutes before us for action. I have a motion to approve the July 17 minutes.
Still moved.
Second. Moved and second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item is the consent calendar. And Kate, could you please quickly review each item?
Yes, Chair, we do have a single thing on the consent agenda. It's our annual notice of direct contribution to jurisdictions. This notice that we give out every fall to our jurisdictions, part of our budget process. The consent agenda was updated to reflect just some late data that doesn't fundamentally change how we sort of approach these things. We're just waiting for some data from the Department of Revenue.
Great. Okay, any questions from me? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is Vermont, and we have 2 really great board members, also member who's putting just innumerable hours, days, and years on Metro. As well recall about Alcan, the recent we'll recognize Matt Turno for his service on the Vermont Board of Directors at a future meeting, and he can attend in person if he was home sick. Is that right? Mr. Studberg and Supervisor Alcott, please give us your.
Thank you, Chair Snyder. Just a brief update. The Metro Board has not met since mid-July, so we'll have a relatively brief update for you. After launching on June 29th, the Better Bus Network continues to roll out this fall. Our team continues to review and respond to feedback we hear from customers around the region. Several routes have been slightly restructured. Our app and real-time information continue to be updated, and there are a handful of bus stop flags we are working hard to update. But overall, we've been very proud of how the launch has gone. It's actually been pretty well received, and appreciate everyone's hard work that's made this happen. And we're really proud of the Vermont team went into not only the planning of this, but the execution and being out in the field. Changes when they're taking place. Blue Line construction wrapped up on time on July 26th. This project allowed our teams to update the train control and signaling system, replace rails, and repair lighting for better visibility. We've since shifted construction to the Green Line, which just wrapped up this last week. And looking forward to the fall, or ahead to the fall, we are in the process of updating Metro's strategic transformation plan, which is our strategic plan. We are required to update this document every 3 years. Actually, that is a Virginia requirement, which I think is a really good thing in my personal view. It really helps focus management and the board working this point here. And it really does serve as the North Star for the board and management in our long-term planning for the operations. And we expect to hold a public comment period for the plan this fall. We have a meeting was it a week ago? About a week ago. And it was very well done, and Boston Consulting helped facilitate, they were the ones who helped us initially. They were part of this update process. Speaker.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. So, yeah, one of the key elements of implementation for the strategic transformation is the capital plan and how the capital plan is spent. There is coming up in October, the board's going to host a workshop on the capital program. And the focus of this really is rail modernization. So we're going to be looking at building towards a business plan to come to the board in December. And so the workshop in October is basically a place to get questions on the table, feedback, provide some early guidance from the board. And I expect that we'll have information that might get back to the commission for feedback. So be ready for that. I guess it'll be November. So we have information from that workshop, and then we'll get into December, and we're gonna basically look at the overall plan over the. Good question.
Compliments on a lot of construction. I feel must have a formula and how it works better because we get less complaints. And I didn't get any, so I'm wondering, when we went through that process, it will modify. Customers, you
Honestly,
tell me
Yeah, they
about it ahead of time.
Yeah, we usually hear about it, and we didn't hear anything. So, it was pretty extensive, with the rails and public plants. And there were still a good number of people in town too. Yeah.
Good job.
Just a kudos on another front, Federal Bus Network actually works. And it's not only measuring the very low complaint rate and the decline complaint rate, but also the quality of the content. And the second thing is, back to school worked very good this time. Not so much in my jurisdiction where back to school is really hard, transit business, but we see, for example, I had very good conversations with our colleagues there, and they were quite pleased on how Women and providing service to kids and when that classroom.
Yeah, and ridership on bus has been steadily, as well. So it'll be interesting to see now that people are, kids are back in school. See what the ridership levels are. I suspect they're gonna be much higher. So.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing, speaking of ridership, ridership continues to be up. I believe this is what, month 49 or something, and 49 months in a row.
Oh, yeah, months, sorry.
So it's both bus and rail. So rail continues to open up system. So anyway, good news. I think we're really, I think in a lot of ways benefiting from the investment that was made in 2018. To start to get us back on the road to fund it up in terms of we're seeing the benefits of that. We got to make sure that.
Thank you for the question. I got two, there was some article back.
The Metro team was aware of those. They had been working on a lot of those. And then addressed a lot of them. This is the typical back and forth between the Safety Commission and Metro. They obviously take everything seriously. They are daily contact with the Safety Commission. Multiple times a day. Teresa, who heads up the team now, Jamie. So it's always this little bit of back and forth. But anyway, we were aware of all this.
And one more question, is there good cooperation?
Actually, I had an orientation session today and the chief was there and I asked him that question. At this point, there is, and I didn't talk about the range of things. Frankly, what I brought up was a question about specific policies, for example, our pursuit policies, high-speed pursuit. Metro Police have a policy. It looks like the feds are implementing a little different policy, with park police. But what the feds are doing is not affecting Metro Police operations. So there is professional level of cooperation on policing issues, and crime continues to come down.
Yeah, and they just so everyone knows, there is a daily coordination because of where Metro is and where we're so the FBI, Homeland Security, Capitol Police, Federal Police, there's a council and Metro is part of that. So there's constant communication and coordination between the schools well before all of this started. Yes, it's a little different. Some people are, a little startled when they see, people in camo and machine guns walking through, but it's, so it is a little different in that regard, but yet there is, high level of professionalism.
That's a key point. If anything changes.
Yeah, and Randy over the general manager has been fairly regular in contact with FTA and then. So,
Any other questions? Yeah.
How well the, top of that has worked out, in my experience, it was great. I've heard good things, but good to hear.
real good.
No, I appreciate that. That's great to hear. I've had tourists come through, you know what I mean? And-
Oh, yeah.
And explaining, no, you don't need a ticket, you can just have to pay, and it's working great, so. Glad we made that investment.
Oh, I know people who are residents who ride back because of the stuff.
Yeah, just remember to only tap one car.
Yes.
Well, that raises the question, what happens if we tap?
Well, you don't want to have multiple cars being tapped, so that's the thing. So just make sure you, yeah.
And David, to your point, in places like Dulles and National, the acceptance really.
Well, thank you for.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, no.
quick question, was hesitating to bring it up, but, constituents in Arlington have been talking, there's a lot of talk about, the ICE and immigration crackdowns that are happening in transit as well, so, a lot of people who go to DC from here, from Virginia, they are asking us, is it safe? Am I going to be confronted with, a raid or, some sort of filtering? Are we seeing anything of that sort or not? Penciling on. We are not going to see.
I'm not aware of it. And we have to prove it. I know where my office is downtown and we're just sort of standing around. And
This area of
sitting
concern. No, okay, it's a area of concern.
Yeah.
And there are all urban myths from time to time, avoid the station, don't get out of the big ones. The Union Station was. Famous. I know that's a very difficult situation right now, and there's no put under the eyes.
Well, I also think it's challenging. Some people really feel that, people need to.
Yeah, totally.
So, you said there was some sort of cooperation, with I guess it's the National Guard that we're seeing in the metro stations. Has Metro or the Metro Police signed an MOU or something like that that is allowing them to go into the stations? Because it's Metro property, right? It's not federal property.
Correct, it is metro property. I'm not aware of an MOU. There are agreements with various federal agents, law enforcement agents,
And the state police as well.
Yeah. and the local police. So yeah, the transit police have agreements basically with all the law enforcement organizations in the metropolitan region. Federal, state, and local, so that's just the nature of metro.
But National Guard is not a law enforcement
And
agency.
there is no MOU.
So how are they allowed to go into the station? So they're just,
Yeah, I mean, like on the streets too.
but they must be under some kind of orders to go into the station. Is Metro not concerned with what kind of orders they have that they are following that has them going into our metro stations?
I don't personally know enough detail about this to speak to with any kind of authority. And I don't think the right people are running the table to do that, but it has not been a, you know.
We have not,
We have not-
coordinated since it started, so maybe
Yeah.
we should bring it up in March board meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and are firearms allowed in the metro stations?
What's that?
Are firearms allowed in metro stations?
Well, we have our own police force, as you know.
But can riders bring firearms?
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't have policing authority, but they're taking firearms into the metro station. Just like any other rider.
Wait a minute. National Guard.
The National Guard is armed.
Right. Well, I don't know if they're armed in, I can't speak to a lot of the short, what's that?
they're armed in the.
They're armed in the metro station.
It's on the news.
I would add, like, I don't know that we're gonna come to any useful conclusion of this today, but I would add as an additional flag at Union Station this week, there are reports that National Guard and other law enforcement agencies were IDing people and not allowing anyone under the age of 18 to exit the metro station at Union Station. And so there are video, I can send you the posts and coverage. But I think that this is a reasonable concern among Virginia local and state elected officials, and I think that it would benefit all of us to have at least. I understand that you may not be able to answer today, but I think there's a broader conversation around the safety of our residents within the metro stations.
Yeah, I mean, again, to use that, we've been informed, obviously, that there.
Let's gather.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, we're not doing some.
As you know, reiterating the students are doing so at the next meeting.
Yeah, we will, but I mean, let's face it, let's face it, you know, we have federal troops, our national guard, police. I mean, that's it. And there is parks, there are metro stations and metro facilities in the district. So, you know, in terms of looking at.
There's be some clarity as to what our role is working with. And the role, no, I didn't see a with national.
And understand what they're.
And look, I think it's safe to assume that those conversations have taken place, but they've not.
Okay.
Well, they need to get it,
It's new.
you're on board, so, you know, that's the point here, I think you're hearing from people who sit on this commission with you, that you better bring it up at the next board meeting. We do need some clarity on these issues, and yes, the DC Attorney General just filed suit today about the occupation of DC, which is how Walter put it accurately, so we will see where that lawsuit goes. But regardless of what happens with that lawsuit, we already do have lots of agreements with federal law enforcement agencies that allow us to understand how they are going to operate within the metro system based on the agreements that we have. And we don't have any agreements that any of us seem to know about on how we would operate with the National Guard, which we do know at this point has been authorized to carry guns, which means we should probably have an agreement as to how they're not.
Yeah, we're happy to bring it back.
Thank you.
Or tell them.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll gather information. Yeah.
If you could, when you get that, if you could send something out, that would be, so we don't have to wait till the next meeting. Appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving along,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not dissimilar from, the Metro Board, EMD moved from SK 28, that board is brief, because neither group has met since the commission last met in July. GMD moves staff has been working, and they spent summer further refining funding need estimates and the regional integration action plan that identifies the ways the region's transit agencies can work together better. The next task force meeting of EMD moves is scheduled for Wednesday, October 29th at COG. The SJ 28 Joint Subcommittee meetings, next meeting is Tuesday, October 21st, and that meeting will focus on reviewing a refined set of transit needs for Northern Virginia and cost containment tools. As remember, the Joint Subcommittee reviewed estimates for 15 revenue sources at the NVTC and PRTC and statewide geographies during its June meeting, and details about those estimates are summarized in the commission's July materials if you want to look back for them. Mr. Gary will now provide an update on the Transit Service Delivery Advisory Committee, also known as TISDAC.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Just in case anybody missed what TISDAC stands for, the Transit Service Delivery Advisory Committee serves as an advisory board to the RTP, the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and the distribution process for transit capital and operating funds. TISDAC has held 2 meetings since commission last met, during the RTP first bring to vote the operating and capital formulas for the merit program provides funding for local bus agencies. And our own Mr. Tice, as a member of TISDAC, will provide a more detailed explanation of the process to date and background on tonight's actions for organizations and the comments to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And indeed, so there's been a lot of information. Obviously, Chair Robinson is living this every day. DRPT is required every 3 years to do a re-examination of their operating capital formula. And this is again, just for our bus properties, it's not VRE, and it's also not Lamont. So this is a part of that thing. And so we did have my role at TISDAC, as I'm representing the Virginia Transit Association. There are other folks on TISDAC who would represent VACO and VML as well as DRPT. So there's a handful of us go around the Commonwealth that are part of that. We had the opportunity to hear Director Robinson brief the CTG in July, and then we had a TISDAC meeting at the end of July and the end of August, presenting some new scenarios. Since the material was sent out last week, we actually were able to get all of the data and to really understand the proposals, but we're beginning to understand the proposed changes that are being examined by DRPT staff and their consultants. At the moment in time, again, when we just look at the way things are being allocated, it presents as if the Northern Virginia bus properties would actually see about a 3% reduction in their state aid. So we're just trying to understand, again, just getting all of the data just late last week. We're still trying to understand what's going on. So one of the things that we wanted to put, because we have a meeting now and our next meeting is actually November, was just to seek approval in case that there are some things within materials as we learn from DRPT to give you the authority to go and either present written comments or testify at CTV, at which time they do public comment. And so one of the things that again we put in here in the past, we've been able to really do a longer time frame and examination of the data. And so the ability to really understand and dive in, we now got the data as last Friday, which is fantastic. But we are kind of in a short time frame if it truly is going to be presented to CTV in the next 6 weeks or so, which could be possible. And I know that the director will speak to it. So what I'm seeking approval for is really for NVTC to provide comments that that as we see this sort of playing out, and as we talk to our local systems, you know, are the weights and the data being used to develop the formulas, really representing the types of, services that each of our services here, transit services provide. The data, I think we're already in a place where it's becoming more transparent and easier to analyze, but that's kind of new. So we want to make sure that obviously any process we're changing performance measurement is very transparent, and lots of outreach and engagement in the community. And then finally, the ability to have predictability. I think we actually may be getting there. Again, I wrote this material before I got to see the data. We might be able to understand a little bit more. So again, we're seeking authorization in case, as we see things play out, that there are some flags that might affect our local transit systems. I do want to say that my role, again, sitting on TISDAC, is to represent the Virginia Transit Association. And as that, I also make sure that I shared all the information, and we do have a lot of conversations with our local bus systems. So I would encourage if your local bus systems, and you as elected officials representing them feel the need to be providing testimony, I would definitely feel that's completely appropriate. I would not necessarily rely on NVTC because you may have things that are unique to your locality. And so again, you're working with all you, but we just got the data. And so that is my summary of the TISDAC / CRBT merit action plan.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments?
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So included in the agenda packet is a timeline for development of our 2026 federal and state legislative agenda. 2026 will be an important year for transit in Virginia at both the federal and state levels. In Richmond, the 2026 Virginia General Assembly session begins on January 15th. MUTC is working with state legislators and partners to secure a long-term dedicated funding solution for transit agencies in Northern Virginia, consistent with MUTC's chance to disclose the future transit funding that were adopted by the commission in January. At the same time, we're engaged with staff level by technical assistance, the SJ funding subcommittee of the General Assembly. We look forward to that being taken action in November and funding recommendations that being informed for legislative agenda. Federal level, surface transportation reauthorization process will continue to make progress in 2026. Its programs and funding authorized through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act expire in September of 2026. MUTC is engaged with stakeholders, including APTA, promote surface transportation reauthorization principles that benefit public transit. On the 18th of this month, MUTC's Joint Vermont Committee and Legislative and Policy Committee meeting will start discussion on the legislative agenda, provide feedback and direction to staff as they develop the initial draft for the 2026 legislative agenda, which the committees will review on October 16th. The commission will be briefed on the committee and work agenda at its November meeting, and will be asked about the agenda at its December meeting. The commissions have any questions for the development of MUTC's 2026 legislative agenda. Which doesn't see it. Yeah, but you will see it in October. Very good. I'll take it over to Mr. Tyson again.
Thank you. Very. So quick update just on the federal side, we always have updates, including your written materials. But a couple of things, last month, former New York Congressman Mark Molinaro was confirmed as the Federal Transit Administration Administrator. And so that was actually an appointment that was waiting many, many months to come in. He's actually a longtime local government official from the Hudson River Valley. He actually is a very strong proponent of public transit. I had an opportunity to interact with him before he was confirmed. And I hope we'll be able to do a little bit more at the after conference coming up. But having that political appointee in place definitely helps move things forward within FTA. When it comes to federal funding, obviously a lot of folks are watching, as we all are, for the September 30th deadline with appropriations bills. Right now, in terms of the public transit space, there is a difference between the Senate and the House transit funding levels. It actually, as has happened before, the Senate level is higher than the House. And mostly that is related to the competitive program called the Capital Investment Grants Program, because most of FTA's programs are formula. But just to give you a point of that, that program is something that, for example, Richmond Highway is already in the pipeline. So obviously watching to make sure that gets fully funded, moving forward, is something to watch out for. And again, this is all gonna get caught up in all of the other drama of government shutdowns and what have you. But it does look like the authorized levels, the formula levels for public transit are fine within both the House and Senate. So those should not be a problem moving forward. And finally, I did want to note that we do have scheduled now on the calendar, our annual legislative forum. I think many of you have been to it in the past. We had over 200 people at it last year. That's going to be Monday, December 15th. Again, you're holding it at George Mason University, Arlington campus. And so, this is done in partnership with PRTC and DRE. And we're still putting everything together for that agenda, but we really hope it to be another wonderfully informative pre-legislative session, transit-focused morning. And again, it's a Monday morning, December 15th at 8:30 in George Mason. At the upcoming committees, we'll even have save the dates, but save the date details will be going up soon. So that is all I have for me.
Commissioner, have any questions? Yeah.
When you were talking about better thing, those are the authorizing levels, and they started working on the transportation appropriations bills and that.
So they have, actually, they've got both through both of the committees on the Senate and House side have, and so the only difference right now is with that competitive grant program, called the Capital Investment Grants Program.
So, probability that they can get a individual bill passed is high.
No, they're not gonna get individual bill pass, or that'd be great if they did.
There's a lot of other things in the transportation website.
Yes, and so, but the public transit in the state, there's really not much to conference between the two, except for that capital investment grants.
But likely, the bill should still probably low.
I was gonna say, I kind of looked at my folks who are in the federal lobbying space, but, we haven't had a on-time appropriation for.
Well, I know it's not gonna be
97, I think, so.
But I'm just.
Yeah.
You know, this year we're on a continuing resolution for everybody. And everyone wants to wants to avoid that here, rather. But politically, back to come from, and just kind of asking your probability of transportation appropriate will pass on its own, be one of the 12 bills.
I don't have intel on that, but I can buy it.
You have a question?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
along those lines, one of your sentences was a NACO representative came to the Region 8 meeting. 6% non-defense discretionary cuts. There's no, it's gonna be the president who's gonna steal money or take money, not the appropriators on either side. A 6%, 94% of last year. And so one of your sentences was, and this is just a follow-up, eventually. One of your sentences, the appropriators and the levels in the THUD bill are virtually the same as last year. That's still a big cut. And the grants program might have to be disproportionate. I guess for my part, I'd be interested in, without belaboring too much, it's just if in the next couple months, when you talk about federal stuff, if the grants impact on us and the THUD levels, I'd like to know, and if there's a way that the president can do his targeted decisions, which are impacting so many other things. Because 94% of last year is not the sky falling place. It's the other stuff. So I don't know if that's.
So, Mr. Chair, there, one of the things that the dynamics of the highway and transit program is that they actually are in a trust fund. And the one program in the transit space that is not in the trust fund, that's the capital investment grants. And so when I talk about meeting the authorized, they're not last year's levels, they're literally the authorized levels in the infrastructure bill. But they are effectively protected because they're under the highway trust fund. But the capital investment grants is in that general fund space, which is why that is the one you see going up and down. But that infrastructure law is only going to be in effect for about the next 18 months. So the authorization conversations are probably the bigger thing, and those are just starting on.
Great. And I just down the road teaching us a little bit in the right context about that capital and so might be of interest in the next few months.
Thank you, Chair Snyder. I will do my best by pressing off. Tonight, there are some action items, from the PAC committee. Item 6A is to authorize the executive director to submit the NBTC Commuter Choice FY25 annual report to the Commonwealth Education Board. By October 31st, as required in NBTC's memoranda of agreement with the Commonwealth. The second action is to authorize the executive director to issue I-66 Commuter Choice FY 2027-2028 call for projects and to hold a public hearing on behalf of the commission. Commuter Choice Program Manager Daniel Nickelbein is at the PRTC meeting. That was a tour to see him. Is at the PRTC meeting tonight, seeking their approval to transmit the annual report. So NBTC Program Analyst Case Saddle will brief the commission on the annual report, and Director of Policy and Programs, Andrew DeBetter, will walk through the I-66 call for projects.
All right. Exactly. So, for slide 2, a quick refresher on the commuter program. It invests total revenue from I-66 inside the Beltway and 95 corridors in public transit and other projects that support our sole pairs by increasing person throughput, mobility, supporting new and first travel options, and enhancing transportation. As mentioned, NBTC has executed 2 MOAs with the Commonwealth of Virginia, one for the corridor of the Idaho. For 66, all NBTC jurisdictions are eligible applicants for commuter choice, as well as PRTC jurisdictions shown on the screen, and as well as OmniRide, VRE, WMATA, and other transit agencies, and applications for funding between these programs are received annually on the corridor. The last I-295-95 program was approved earlier this year. Means it's time to start running cycle equipment around 66. And I will talk more about that shortly. Next slide, please. As mentioned, there are 2 action items. The first is to authorize the executive directors and the annual report to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and the second is to open up the call for projects for the I-66 round and authorize the executive to hold here. Let's go to Jason, who will give us on the commuter choice annual report.
All right, thanks, Andrew. We go to the next slide. I'm pleased to present some highlights of why commuter this report. As well known, 2025 brought significant changes to the Greater Washington region, and commuter played a vital role in supporting the partners. This year, commuter choice project set an all-time record for ridership and average of 65,000 passenger trips each year. FY 2025, a 73% increase compared to the same period in we pay in FY 2025 for the product stayed I-66 and I-395 travelers. The device total 2,400 hours of travel time, 231,000 miles of travel, and over $28,000. The beautiful annual report also details of the programs. Since 2017, Commuter Choice has supported nearly 10.5 million trips on the I-66 and I-395 corridors, resulting in an estimated 197 million fewer vehicle miles traveled, 1.9 million hours travel saved, and nearly 26 million household commuters. Go on to the next slide. As travel patterns in 2025 change, Commuter Choice funding routes for the some routes operated by Fairless Connector, OmniRide, Dash, some large projects here to proud of in getting the work of one of these cropping motivation. We also celebrated a couple of milestones for several Commuter Choice funded capital projects in FY 25 construction, parking garage, and new station, two left of that dash on Commuter Choice funded. Commuter Choice is one of the very few capital programs, one of the few grant programs project. Apologies. Commuter Choice is one of the few grant programs in the nation that can support transit capital and operating projects. Then go on to the next slide. The end of the year 2025 is 33 and their two. Of those 33 most surplus service and the projects providing funding for new or additional service for local Huron, the employment of the Pentagon, Wells and Balls, and Border and Canada. This is the program's conception in 2017, we are choices in $70 million and the equipment projects, possible in Kenya, and the public congestion, and at the leaders. Before we seek your approval to grant the annual report, I'll turn it back to Andrew, cover the IC6, we look at this on 17, all problems.
Thank you, Jason. So let's go to the next slide, which outlines, I think it's called the project and steps, program selection. So this is the 7th round of I-66 commuter choice funding. We've been to advertise up to $2 million in funding for the project. It is a higher number than the typical $50 million for the cycle. This cycle, I-66 commuter choice has greater funding availability for the project due to less demand available for prior funding rounds. Full revenues that exceeded projections have resulted in additional fee and funding fee obligations from previously. As a reminder, NBTC is currently engaged in a joint study on I-66 needs assessment, a study with DRT to better understand travel transit patterns in the corridor and identify candidate projects for future 66 choice and DRT outside of Beltway 66 money. Commuter choice applications must benefit inside the Beltway toll pairs. It must increase person throughput and are restricted to 1 of 9 eligible project budget types and all. Applications can request funding between $200,000 and up to $20 million. You must demonstrate that that funding can be obligated by July 2028 and fully expended by July. Funding for transit operations is awarded 2 years at a time and awarded future renewals beyond that to so tonight on the next slide, we are seeking commission authorization for that project. We could open on October 6th. We close on September. NBTC has been meeting with the eligible applicants to discuss the application of ideas and informational webinar schedule for applicants. After that call, the project closes in December, staff will review application for eligibility and coordination for T and all eligible applications. After all the public hearing and public comment period in the spring, and along with that draft staff record for the project. We'll then bring that to the program advisory committee in April for the review and endorsement, and then to the commission, and then with so that concludes our presentation.
Who is an eligible applicant, and how do you make sure you talk to all of them? You're talking to someone who said.
Absolutely. So I can build them up around for 66 like 2. So it's basically the local jurisdiction transit agency. Sometimes they're the same thing. For example, the today and that. So that kind of lists the eligible applicants. It includes VRE, includes mileage, includes ride. We talked to them frequently through variety of our kind of coordination meetings. We've also been reaching out to them this summer to let them know this is coming, that there's an excellent funding opportunity, and offering kind of essentially pre-briefs with good ideas. So that's been happening, it is currently happening, and I think will hopefully help inform what they come with for application. We also, as we mentioned, have conducted assessment studies, so that actually happened much earlier this year, and there's been a little delay to update the data because of the significant ridership increase that happened in the spring. So I think that process alone also helped kind of bring everybody together and think of ideas. It's not required to be in the needs assessment that isn't even done yet to be part of this round. You just need to be eligible, but I think like we've definitely been talking to everyone to get a very good list of items.
Another element, but elementary question. So you're doing this with the S6 project. Is the same thing done with transurban tolls, same process, same money, was that set?
When you say transurban tolls,
The transurban projects, not. Yeah,
so we have a similar process for 395/95.
it's called commuter choice too.
It is commuter choice, branded the same, it's a different MOA. I think a lot of the projects are running in a similar manner, or programs are running in a similar manner, but are slightly different. Sort of, governing documents. And the DRPT has an outside development 66 program, well, that's not in BTC, that's, yeah.
Just to follow up on Delegate Sickles' question. How many applications or I guess applications don't get funded? And looking back, are there some that were funded that you, wish you hadn't funded?
It's a good question. I don't have specifics in front of me. There have been projects that, have either, that have been canceled, deobligated by the applicant, sometimes with, conversations with MBTC staff. The pandemic was a big, sort of change agent, if you will, for this program. It really altered demands, especially for operating projects. Things came back somewhat slowly and then come back much more significantly this last year. And so I think like we are seeing rebounds in the corridor, and I think that definitely affected prior. But I think a lot of folks, now that this year has been very strong ridership year, I think we're poised to
Or can I just add, so when the program, especially on 66 was starting up, this is one of the reasons why we only fund 2 years of transit operations. And this was actually some feedback we got from the transit operators is, give us 2 years. But if they're performing, then they can come back again. So we have had, especially in the first couple of years, we had a couple of additional bus routes that did not perform. They did not come back for funding. So we do have that check in terms of making sure that the transit we're funding. And just to follow on DeAndre's point, I think the thing that's been interesting for the 66 projects we funded 2 years ago, they are packed right now because so many people have come back. Of course, they didn't know how to 2 years ago how to anticipate ridership. So again, we have that ability. They can come back and say, hey, actually, I want to add additional bus service or what have you. But for paying for operations, they're always checking in every 2 years. So we're only funding those that are plus.
So not unrelated, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there are categories like bus service, access to transit, bus capital, rail capital, etc. Is there a consultation with the agency about what the better mix is? I see a lot of, bus service being supported by the program. I'm grateful for that. I know that it works. But as we go and learn how this works, is there a kind of a targeted mix of what we want to fund with this money? What is a more efficient mix for systemic support?
Well, so that's actually one of the reasons why we've gone back and working with DRPT on doing a re-examination of I-66. We launched this program. It was actually following a multimodal study when the Commonwealth decided to toll 66. So a lot of the projects we funded early on were ones that were identified in that program. So that's exactly why we've gone back, because travel patterns have changed. And so we're working with the Commonwealth to really see what are the right ways that what are the right projects that can move more people through that corridor. So we're hoping next year for that study to come to really enlighten and tell us more about what's the best way to move people. And again, that makes it then identifying opportunities for our localities to go and then look at the things that we've identified with the Commonwealth as candidate projects for future funding.
Thank you.
Comment? So, let's just a road trip.
Certainly on the block road.
So, all in favor of the block vote, then 2 items. Okay, I'm passing again. So,
All right, next we are gonna be discussing Envision Round 7, Bus Rapid Transit. NBTC and its consultant team are working through the technical work of Phase 4-2 of the Envision Round 7 BRT project and are finalizing community outreach plans for October. More information on the work done so far is available in the written meeting materials. including a website update, and a website tool for the public to learn more about the project. There will be a more in-depth update on Envision Route 7 and public outreach plan at the September 18th Program Advisory Committee meeting. You're all welcome.
Thank you very much. So, any questions? Moving right along, PRE, so, it will, that's not Rich, are we?
He's on his way to the RTC right now.
So, without objection, will delay this. Made it. Yeah, wow. Attorney, you are in the operations chair, so bad, like good things. Where's your?
Thank you, Chair Snyder. Tonight we have several action items, including resolution 2578, which will approve the contract of purchase and sale with the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority for the acquisition of 4 Manassas Line property interests. They include the Seminary Yard in Alexandria, the Broad Run corridor providing a new lead track from the Broad Run Maintenance and Storage Facility to the Manassas Main Line, permanent easements of the 5 existing station platforms on the Manassas Line, Backwood Road, Rolling Road, Burke Center, Manassas Park, and Manassas, and a permanent commuter rail operating easement along 1/2 of the entire BPRA-owned Manassas Line. This proposed contract with BPRA is necessary to finalize the purchase details and close on the acquisition of the property interests. The initial closing is planned for September 2025, at which time the acquisition of Seminary Yard, the Broad Run corridor, and the station platform easements will occur. A second closing will occur at a later date and to acquire the operating easement once full funding has been arranged. VRE staff has worked with the Federal Transit Administration to identify a way to fund 80% of the purchase price for these interests using federal grant funds, subject to a 20% non-federal local match. The proposed contract of purchase of sale will not impose any additional financial requirements on the commissions, but will allow the acquisitions of the Manassas Line property interests to proceed to closure. All right. We're going to talk about 7D, resolution 2579, which will approve an agreement for relocation of Virginia Electric and Power Company facilities in the VRE Manassas Park Station. The proposed agreement provides for Dominion Energy's relocation of their existing transmission poles and realignment of the related transmission wire lines supported by those poles. The agreement also modifies the alignment of that post right-of-way through the VRE Manassas Park Station parking lot to follow the revised alignment. The replacement and realignment of the existing transmission poles and related transmission lines will be at no cost to the commissions. There's a theme here, no cost to the commission. For action 7E and 7F, these are grouped together as they are both agreements with subsidiaries of Lumen Technologies, Inc. Resolution 2580 will authorize the VRE CEO to execute an easement agreement with Wiltel Communications LLC, owned by Lumen Technologies, Inc. for real property adjacent to VRE's broadband maintenance and storage. Resolution 2581 will authorize the VRE CEO to execute an amendment to a site lease agreement with CenturyLink Communications, also owned by Lumen Technologies, for property owned by the commissions adjacent to the railroad right-of-way and the VRE Fredericksburg office, expanding the leased premises and extending the terms of lease of the agreement. VRE staff are bringing these two matters directly to the commissions rather than through the operations board because of Lumen's request to commence its work on the Fredericksburg expansion in September. VRE's accommodation of this request has facilitated reaching final agreement on the easement needed at Broad Run, which has been pending for several months. The net fiscal impact of the two proposed real property agreements with Lumen Technologies will be slightly positive for VRE in FY26. The lump sum additional lease revenue to VRE for the Fredericksburg property will be $360,000, while the cost of the permanent easement at Broad Run will be $204,300, which will be paid from VRE's capital reserve. Both transaction values have been judged fair and reasonable based on market appraisal. We'll have everybody. I think it's back to you, Chair Snyder, to give you some questions on it.
Yeah, any questions on the operation? Points. we would know, especially under. Movement of utilities, and number 2579, those costs of. So, does anyone object to block voting? Already on. If you no objection, no one's gonna work to approve, resolution of 2578, 2579, 2580, 2580.
So made one,
Second. Second, okay, second, any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, those are passed unanimously. Well, Sarah?
All right, a short update, there's a written update in your meeting materials on the VRE key budget issues. NVTC will receive updates from VRE staff later this fall on the FY 2027 budget. I can share, we've sort of begun the preview conversation about the budget, and we will have, I think, our first finance committee meeting in October. To sort of really dig into that process, but I would encourage you to check your meeting materials, and I see that the CFO is here if anybody has questions on the budget issue.
Hey, I'm seeing you. Thanks, Sarah.
Finally, wanted to give everybody an update on the VRE CEO search committee. As everybody here is probably aware, our CEO, his last day will be October 3rd. Our next meeting will be our last meeting with Rich Dalton, and when he appears tonight, this will be his last meeting here at NVTC. VRE stood up a search committee at our last meeting in July. That committee has been working actively this summer. We have engaged Kraufhauer and Associates, a search firm with a deep well of experience specifically in the transportation and railway space, who is helping to promote and seek out candidates and vet candidates for us. We are working towards an original goal and deadline of having the hiring process completed by year end. We are keenly aware of wanting to have a CEO in place when the General Assembly sits down in January, and so that VRE can be active in that conversation. Our current hope and expectation is that the search committee will meet again on September 19th at sort of as a part of the next VRE meeting, and roll into interviewing shortly after that into September and October. This, the commissions, both PRTC and NVTC, have the final say on a recommended candidate. And I would anticipate, if all goes well, coming back to this body in November at the earliest, but in December as sort of fallback for your approval. I invite, if anybody has questions, concerns, there's a brochure that was vetted by the entire board of VRE that is being used in discussion with applicants. And if you have questions, comments, or feedback on the process, I'm happy to entertain those. I'm serving on the search committee as well, with a nice cross-section from both commissions on our board, and with people who were involved in the last CEO search as well.
Well, I did. In 12. Long.
Thank you. You do have my written report in your materials. So I won't elaborate. I will just add to what Kate mentioned earlier about our ongoing merits evaluation that is required statutorily every 3 years. I will tell you that it's an evolving process. And while Kate has been a really great representative, not only for BTA and also for this commission during the process, so thank you, Kate, for that. But I'm glad that she now has kind of your authorization and approval to provide her comments. But I do want to remind everyone that if and when any formal recommendations are to be presented by the RPT to the CTV, they will have to go through a 45-day public comment period first. So we wouldn't be bringing anything to the CTV. The earliest would be I don't think that we could get it to the October meeting, and there's no meeting in November, so the earliest would likely be CTV in December.
if we choose to make a formal recommendation. So there's that, it's an evolving process, and we're glad to have all the data posted, and we are continuing to have follow-up meetings. We're meeting with BTA and their representatives next week, and potentially EML, that's in the works as well. So any agency that's followed up and asked for kind of a deeper dive than what we're doing in the public meetings and forums, we're taking all of those meetings. We really appreciate all the feedback. There was some feedback this past week on specifically commuter routes by PRPC, and we're kind of taking a closer look and evaluating to make sure we've analyzed that whole. So it's been a good process for the first time. I'm the one leading the department through it. And I just appreciate all the feedback and that we're getting, so that we can do the right thing, to ensure that these dollars go as far as we can possibly make them.
Give us any characterization of what the government have voiced in your area.
I do not have any information to share at this moment. I wish I did. I'm a little bit more removed than I used to be in this role, and I know I was actually in the PhD for a little bit this afternoon. And talked briefly with the deputy of finance, deputy secretary of finance, and they are in the midst of very intense meetings. I'm not in the middle of those meetings. So as soon as I have information that comes my way to share, I'll be happy to share it with this group when we're.
It's always better to start.
Absolutely. Understood.
Thank you. Anything else for, yeah, not seeing any questions. Thank you very much. So next item is executive director. Okay, yeah, so share.
I do, I always do, and I love it when folks come in and taking a look at our newsletter, lots of great things, really capturing numbers of things we had going over this summer. I do. And everybody that loves getting their photo, you know. I mean, I don't think we've done an inventory of everybody, but I think I now feel like I need to do that. Like Sarah, I think we need to figure out to make sure we're missing. But thank you for those of you who did come early this evening.
Hey, you, board member Walter Powell.
Fantastic. But this evening I also have the pleasure of introducing a staff member. There he is, Owen Williams, just joined us as a program analyst. He is a lifelong Virginian, a proud graduate of Fairfax County Public Schools, Marshall High School. I guess I'm allowed to say that. And a two-time, not one, but two-time graduate of William & Mary, where he had a bachelor's degree and then a master's in public policy. And so he's helping us, he's already dove right in on a lot of the SJ 28 and funding stuff. So we're really happy to have Owen as part of the team. And then really the other thing I just wanted to update, and I know we're gonna sort of figure out how we do the first Mr. Gold. Is again, we've got some, you know, different meetings coming up, and scheduling just because of, we do not have an October commission meeting. The October commission meeting falls right on Yom Kippur. We are not having that meeting. You will get that evening of either be observing or having a meeting off. So, so what we're doing though is we do have committee meetings. As you've already heard, on September 18th, we're gonna have a Program Advisory Committee meeting at 4:30. The WMATA Committee and Legislative and Policy Committee meeting is gonna be later at 6 o'clock. Those are gonna be upstairs at our suite. And just as a follow-on, we're talking about merit changes, because it's wonderful having a good time. I think we may have JRBT giving us a little bit more information on the merit changes at that meeting. So thank you, Ms. Robinson. We look forward to your guys to get an overview there. So, and then in October, so again, we will not have anything the first week of October. Later in October, we'll again have those same joint WMATA and Legislative and Policy Committee on the 16th. We actually have an executive committee meeting starting a little bit earlier that evening at 6 o'clock. And then so really our next commission meeting is on November 6th. And again, that will just be our usual routine. Now, at the table, in addition to all these, you know, fantastic pieces of paper, everybody should have got some new lapel pins. If you need more, you need an extra, you want to get a magnet one versus a pin band. Rhonda is your person. I will say I love the magnet ones, but I would warn you, they don't have a lot of, you need to have a pretty thin fabric, or you can use it on with the office event today. But anyway, thank you to the team for kind of getting some new shiny, bigger versions of what we had before. And then finally, we have, our financial reports, as always, as included in your material. So that is my report. You guys can still go.
You don't know that. Yes, go ahead, you.
Well, first of all, congratulations to Anne for her 40 under 40, that's amazing.
Thank you, because I knew that, and now I'm embarrassed, so. It's 40 under 40, Mass Transit Magazine, and so we're really happy that Amber Green was honored. It's a very competitive process, and so, it's always fun, I'm sure you're dying right now. So,
I also wanted to give kudos to Kate because she came out yesterday to the Loudon Chamber of Commerce Policymakers Series. The state of transportation in Loudon County, and she represented very, very well on the panel. And had to be there at 8 AM, so kudos to you, but you did a really great job, so thank you so much for coming out, we appreciate it.
I would note that the commission meeting on October, our committee, so that's, no such things. Are we ready for the second? So moving to the short session discussing the already matter. Those open meeting, and you can open session. One on this. This is three, well, this is and, you know, saying that we are in closed session. The meeting will resume live, and from the session. Doesn't always. I feel roughly. Do I have a motion and a into closed session? Go ahead and motion will read. Motion to enter in closed session pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. 2-3711 A1 of the Code of Virginia. According to the Transportation Commission rules. Personnel matters. So. No second.
Okay.
The discussion. All in favor, should the election of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Madam, passing the one closed session.
And we're back. We're back.
We're back on live.
Okay, welcome back to the public and staff, this is the life thing. Unit certification comes out for the session, and working no problem. So, the transportation, the third part of the document, all, and the phone is going to be the same. But you just include the closed session, that one. And two owns the public as were identified in the motion of the closed session. The burden stuff or system is not still used.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? That I'm passing unanimously. So we have a resolution 2582 for commission relation. And Sarah will read that action.
Sure, it was circulated to all of you confidentially. Resolution 2582 is to appoint acting VRE Chief Executive Officer. Would you like me to- Whereas the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission, the commissions appointed Richard A. Dalton as the Virginia Railway Express Chief Executive Officer effective September 3rd, 2020. Whereas Mr. Dalton has tendered his resignation from the position of VRE CEO effective at the business on October 3rd, 2025. Whereas until the recruitment and selection process has been concluded and a new VRE CEO has been hired, an acting VRE CEO will need to be appointed. Now therefore be it resolved that the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission hereby appoints Dallas Richards as the acting VRE Chief Executive Officer effective at the close of business on October 3rd, 2025. Be it further resolved that while serving in the acting capacity, the acting VRE CEO shall be compensated an amount in addition to his regular salary as provided for in VW Personnel Policy 6, Section 3. Arguably approved this 4th day of September 2025.
Thank you. That's the motion.
Yeah, I'm moving it. Yeah.
Any discussion? None, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Now, we pass it unanimously. Now, let's go back, start and say, hey. Recognition of Rich Dalton, made it up with, I don't say what. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for being here. We were, on June 20th, going to be already, with words including work for once and all felt the operation. We already trained from the state in June 1993, so these are all universities. We stepped in, if you don't see it over sometimes, multiple hired as a police. During 16-year tenure of the UAE, British Transportation Department. The implementation of positive training. Liability of Sunday Maine. The extension of New York served possibly county. Asia. And plan is transform rail by shifting URE on the computer from this rail service to a more regional operation. In addition, direction and regions over the responding to shifting passenger needs and most of economic growth throughout Northern Virginia and surrounding jurisdictions. Richland, we are really through substantial evolution in both 30 years more than convention pandemic. Challenge. The new rail network across the nation to navigate the new partnership and uncertain budgetary cycle. really on behalf of the entire commission, I want to thank you, Rich, for this outstanding work you are doing, life safe and provide the road service to our community. I really do say that personally, running anything is definitely and running the rail system, particularly complicated and literally the lives of the passengers. Rich, thank you so much. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I think it's fitting that the first thing Rich said to us tonight was safely, he arrived safely, because I just wanna, besides the specifics of the actions that Chair Snyder mentioned, in my 3.5 years so far serving on VRE, which overlapped a lot of Rich's tenure as CEO, that safety mission was so paramount and honestly has changed like my approach to sort of, active activities and group gatherings. And I really want to recognize that, because I think in an era where we talk a lot about road safety and transportation safety and all that sort of things, that I really appreciated the persistent and consistent messaging about this being a safe way, not just fast, not just cheap and affordable, but you're gonna get where you need to go, and your family can count on that, and you can feel safe doing it. One of the things not mentioned in here as well that I observed a lot was talking about eliminating at-grade crossings. And I know that was really important to Rich's tenure as well, and we have a lot of them in our Northern Virginia sort of service area. And they are lethal and they are problematic, and I really appreciated how often, that issue has been uplifted, and the work and the funding, and the efforts to sort of eliminate those at-grade crossings. We have, our Alexandria station is going to be eliminating one of those effectively with our big project at our station. So just wanted to express, my appreciation to what I've seen, what the riders have experienced, continuing to provide service throughout COVID. There were a lot of people that still had to go to work, and, despite that, and the fact that they could do so safely, employees go to work safely, I think is really meaningful and a powerful legacy. So thank you for that, and for your time dating back to day one. We all really appreciate it.
Wasn't sure where we were fighting. I'll make it brief. Concise. You do have the CEO report in your package. I do want to note that, for the month of August, we, for various reasons, we saw a tremendous uptick in our reliability, 87%, 3 percentage points below our target 90%. One major improvement, if you will, is, I know the operations board used to during the term, the track 22 project. That's an additional track and platform plus Union Station, where we experienced a lot of congestion. That project started in 2019, was supposed to be about a 2-year project. Here we are. Nonetheless, so that opened up in the month of August, and that really provided a lot of relief. Still some other areas that we need to hone in on. But anyway, good news there. Ridership, always see it kind of soft in the month of August. Came in just over 10,000 average daily riders, but we're already seeing that post Labor Day uptick. And then just while we're on the ridership topic, we have a really big push going on, and we'll get greater as the month goes on. We have this milestone we're trying to hit. It's 100 millionth rider. So by the at the end of August, we were at 99,768,624. Now probably plus or minus a couple there, but I think it's pretty accurate. We anticipate hitting that target on or about October 1st. So pretty excited about that. We won't have the ability to actually capture the 100 millionth rider, so we're gonna celebrate that day and just consider everybody that rides our service that day, particularly it's in the AM. Everybody's the 100 millionth rider, so we'll be out there. Folks that are out there that morning will receive something pretty special. So something, a momentum that you can, take on with that. And that's my look forward.
Thanks very much. Again, do work for the available.
Sure. As most that know me, I'm not one to draw attention to myself, so talking about myself in this context is, not that I'm uncomfortable, it's just not who I am. But I will say, I appreciate that there's something that a takeaway or something that is left behind, if you will, there's gotta be that safety. Okay, passionate about that, and frankly, our staff is as well. And Vice Chair mentioned that you've picked up some things. I think everybody has picked up some things that they didn't know before, so, if I walk out of here with anything, my head held up high, it's on that topic right there. And then the next thing I just want to say is that I appreciate, the nice comments and stuff like that, but I just, I want to say, I've had a 35-year career in the railroad industry, as noted. Before that, I spent 6 years in the United States Navy, 41 years, post high school, if you will. Some cooking jobs, dishwashing jobs, did some paper route stuff before that, but, we'll have to talk about that. But I think similar to everybody else sitting around the table and everybody in this room, is that in order to serve in these capacities like we do, it takes a heck of a lot of support from our families. So I want to say thank you to my family for giving me this. Well, thank you again. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. And thinking about the October 1st, it seems to me that something inviting the commissions might be a good idea to tell the general public. I don't know whether you do a ribbon cutting for that day, but I think that's a huge celebration. 100 million passengers.
Definitely makes me want to look more closely at Rich's employment contract. Kind of fascinating that we hit 100 million and we around the next day.
Size 4 font.
It was buried there somewhere in there. No, but I know at the VRE board level, we'll be talking more about how to have VRE board members at their respective stations. I think that's a great idea. And to the extent, NBTC commissioners are interested in being out of the station, taking a ride, voting it, I think it's a great idea.
Any plans?
Well, I have to tell you, since I announced, my head's been very in VRE. I haven't, I think I told the operation for, I have a couple of goals immediately. I do want to stop wearing long pants. In favor of flip flops and for some of you know, I live out on the units, so that's, I like to stress on things, but, I'm, the best years of my life are ahead, so I'm gonna be somewhat creative. I have some other interests and stuff, and I'm gonna stay very good.
Thank you, guys. Let me turn it back to the,
No, because we moved some things around the agenda, there's no other.
and Sarah, so many items, you want any more?
I'm full out. I'm set.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up? Fine.
Sorry.
Before I vote, a big thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's 8:30.